Ladies and gentlemen, fellow seekers, there comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when we stop reaching outward and begin to turn inward. It often begins in silence, perhaps after loss, after betrayal, or simply the weight of existing behind a mask for too long. And in that silence, a question rises. Who am I beneath all of this? To truly love yourself is not the same as simply liking yourself on a good day. It is not affirmation in the mirror or positive thinking pasted over deep wounds. It is an act of spiritual rebellion. It is the willingness to descend into the unknown parts of the self, to meet the shadow that lives within, to sit with it, and to say you too belong. You see, self-love is not all light. It is forged in fire. It is born when you stop abandoning yourself to meet the expectations of others. When you stop betraying your soul for fleeting approval. It is the moment you no longer fear your own depths. And here's the paradox. The more whole you become, the more alone you may feel, at least for a time. Because your light begins to shift, it no longer begs, it no longer chases. It stands quietly, unapologetically, authentically. And like a lantern held in the dark, it does not move toward others, it simply shines. And in that light, something miraculous happens. Those who come for convenience, for control, for illusion, they vanish, not with conflict, but with quiet irrelevance. They are unable to remain in the presence of someone who no longer dims themselves. But those who see your soul, they arrive, or they stay, or they return. Not because you needed them, but because your energy called only what was true, what was earned, what was alive. You no longer attract people who want to be saved. You attract people who have done their own saving. You no longer seek validation, you become a mirror for those seeking to find themselves. To truly love yourself is not to become invulnerable, but to be so rooted in truth that no storm can uproot you. You know your shadow, you know your light, you made peace with both. And when that happens, when the war inside is quiet, your life changes. Not with noise, but with clarity. And only those who deserve your light arrive. To truly love oneself is to journey inward, not into fantasy or ego, but into the raw, unpolished terrain of the soul. It is not a gentle path, nor one decorated with affirmation and comfort. It is a descent, a deep, aching return to parts of ourselves we were taught to hide, reject, or deny. In this inner world, we find not just our strengths, but our fears, our shame, our envy, our rage, the very aspects we were told were unlovable. Most people confuse self-love with indulgence or confidence, but confidence can be a performance and indulgence a distraction. Real self-love begins the moment we stop running from who we are and begin to face it, all of it. To love yourself truly, you must look into the dark corners of your psyche, the ones you've kept hidden, even from yourself. And when you find what lives there, the work is not to judge it or destroy it, but to understand it. To sit with it, to integrate it. There is a reason the parts of us we hide are often called the shadow. They are unconscious, repressed, and carry the energy we were once too young or too scared to hold. But they do not disappear just because we bury them. They speak in our triggers, our patterns, our self-sabotage. They live in our relationships, our addictions, our fears of being seen. And until we turn toward them, we remain fragmented, divided against ourselves, trapped in a cycle of self-abandonment. But integration is different. Integration is sacred. It means allowing the rejected parts of yourself to come home. It means you no longer exile your sadness or deny your jealousy or suppress your anger. Instead, you ask, what do you need? Why are you here? What truth do you carry that I have been unwilling to hear? Through this dialogue, healing begins. Through this work, wholeness is restored. The self becomes not a mask or a performance, but a unified field, where light and shadow coexist, where the soul is no longer ashamed of its contradictions. And from this place, something extraordinary happens. Peace. When you integrate your full self, your energy becomes solid, grounded, unshakable. You stop leaking life force trying to please others. You stop contorting yourself into acceptable versions for the sake of belonging. You no longer seek love through perfection or protection because you have finally given it to yourself unconditionally. This is what it means to truly love yourself. Not to ascend, but to descend. Not to fix, but to feel. Not to become more, but to remember who you were before the world told you to be less. And in that remembering, in that raw and honest reunion with your whole self, your inner light begins to glow. Not from ego, but from essence. It is not loud, it does not compete, but it is undeniable. Because once you love yourself like that, completely, without condition, you become someone who cannot be forgotten nor easily left. You become someone only the worthy can approach. When you truly love yourself, not as an idea, but as a lived, embodied reality, your very presence changes. Not because you try to be different, but because you no longer pretend, you no longer perform. The masks fall away, and what is left is something real, authenticity. And that authenticity has a frequency. It is not always loud or visible, but it is deeply felt. It changes the way people experience you. It changes who feels safe in your presence and who quietly fades. This is the quiet miracle of healing. Your energy begins to do the sorting for you. You no longer need to explain yourself to those who never intended to understand. You no longer chase closeness with those who only love the mask you wore. Instead, your being, whole, integrated and quietly radiant, becomes a kind of filter. Those who are still hiding from themselves will feel exposed by your honesty. They will feel threatened by your peace. They may not know why. They feel uncomfortable around you, only that they do. And they will leave, often without explanation. But those who have also walked through their own fire, those who have sat with their shadows and met themselves with grace, will recognize you. Not with words, but with presence. There is a resonance between souls who no longer pretend. It is immediate and unmistakable. You speak less, but understand more. You don't need to convince or persuade or prove. You simply are. And in that being, you attract what is aligned and repel what is not. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. When you know your worth, not as an idea, but as a felt truth, you stop negotiating it, you stop overgiving, you stop accepting crumbs in the name of connection, you stop shrinking so others can feel tall. Instead, you hold your light gently but firmly. And those who are meant to walk with you will not be blinded by it. They will be illuminated. Loving yourself shifts everything because it recalibrates what you will allow. You begin to listen less to words and more to energy. You begin to notice how you feel in someone's presence, tired or alive, diminished or expanded. You stop clinging to potential and start honoring reality. You no longer romanticize suffering or confuse intensity with intimacy. You recognize that peace is not boring, it is rare, and those who bring it or gold. When your light is rooted in truth, only those who respect truth can remain. It is not personal when others leave. It is energetic. They are not bad, they are simply unready. And you, finally, no longer wait for readiness in others while betraying yourself. The relationships that stay or form anew are different. They are not built on control or performance or need. They are spacious, respectful, rooted in presence. And the beautiful irony is this: when you stop chasing love and start embodying it, love finds you. Not the fantasy, but the real thing. Drawn to the light you never again had to dim. There is a sacred kind of loneliness that often follows the journey of truly loving yourself. It is not the emptiness of isolation, but the quiet clearing that occurs when everything begins to fall away. You stop needing to be surrounded by people who do not see you. You stop tolerating noise that drowns out your intuition. What remains is space, vast, unfamiliar, and at times unnerving. But within that space, something holy begins to take root. Solitude becomes less of a punishment and more of a sanctuary. You begin to realize how much of your life was lived in response to others, adjusting, adapting, performing, and now, in the absence of that pressure, you are left with something rare, yourself, just yourself. And while that may feel like loss at first, it is actually the beginning of freedom. In this space, your attention turns inward. You begin to notice your own rhythms, your own desires, your own truth, uncensored by external expectations. You become reacquainted with your voice, your body, your breath. And you see, often for the first time, how much energy was being spent on seeking, pleasing, explaining. When all of that is gone, what remains is stillness. And within that stillness is your essence. This is where the deepest form of self-love is born. Not in the presence of others, but in the absence of them, in the moments where you sit with your own company and do not reach for distraction, in the days where silence speaks louder than validation, in the long, quiet hours where you are no longer anyone's reflection, but your own source of light. It is in this sacred solitude that your light strengthens, not because you are untouched by the world, but because you have stopped dimming yourself to be touched by it. You stop negotiating your spirit to earn a seat at someone else's table. You build your own. And suddenly, the cost of letting in the wrong energy becomes far too high. Your peace becomes priceless. And so many do not arrive. Many who once held space in your life begin to fall away, not with anger, but with the soft inevitability of misalignment. They are not enemies, they are echoes of an old self you no longer inhabit. Their exit is not a loss, but a return of energy back to you. Yet in time others come, not in crowds, but in whispers. They do not arrive to complete you or save you or fix you. They arrive because they recognize you, your wholeness, your truth, your light. They have sat in their own silence, faced their own shadows, and made their own peace. They do not fear your depth because they've explored their own. These are not just people, they are mirrors, and they are rare. So if you find yourself in the sacred solitude of self-love, do not rush to fill it. Let it teach you. Let it cleanse your life of everything unworthy. Because when you truly love yourself, you no longer fear being alone. You fear settling for less than truth. And from that space, only those who deserve your light will arrive. So what does it mean in the end to truly love yourself? It means to remember what the world made you forget, that you were never meant to fracture yourself for love, to silence your truth for peace, or to trade your light for belonging. It means walking back through the wilderness of your own soul, gathering every lost piece, and choosing again and again to stand in wholeness. It is not easy, it is not fast, it is not always joyful, but it is real. And from that place of realness, everything changes. Your relationships shift, your boundaries sharpen, your solitude becomes sacred, and your presence begins to speak a language beyond words. You become someone who is not here to be chosen. You are here to choose, and you choose peace, you choose truth, you choose yourself. This is not loneliness, it is liberation. Because when your love for yourself is no longer conditional, neither is your light. And that light, steady and unshaken, no longer pleads to be seen, it simply shines. And only those who are ready, who are worthy, who are true, only those who deserve your light arrive. Thank you.